Takeru, also known as Wave, attracted some impressive talent in the early 1990s. Akira Kitamura and Shinichi Yoshimoto kept up their track record from Capcom. Both Kokorone and Little Samson feel distinctly influenced by Capcom hits like Mega Man and Ghosts and Goblins. Koichi Yatsui, however, went in a different direction when he joined Takeru. It would result in an inspired and unexpected take on a genre that would ultimately do little to help the small and upcoming studio. A former film student, Koichi Yatsui utilized his knowledge of cinematography when developing the arcade game Strider for Capcom, and it showed in the game's habit of leaping from one action scene to another. Yatsui's next project would be even closer to film, but it wasn't exactly an action movie. Nostalgia 1907 is an adventure game set on a massive ocean liner in the North Atlantic. A bomb damages the ship, and a mysterious saboteur threatens to detonate another one. Players guide traveler Kasuke Yamada in uncovering the culprit, and his search is conveyed through lengthy dialogue and sepia-tone graphics. For its time, Nostalgia 1907 is impressive. The characters look and animate with a mixture of realistic motion and slight exaggeration, thanks once again to Takeru mainstay Kiyoshi Utada's skill with two-dimensional sprites. But it's also a very indulgent creation. Conversations with other passengers make up the majority of the game, and for every choice the player makes, there's a lot of talking. A lot of talking. The most interactive moments come when the player has to disarm the second bomb aboard the ship, and even that involves a lot of back and forth discussion. While dialogue-driven games were commonplace at the time, Nostalgia 1907 strayed very far from what the Japanese market wanted from the genre. With its faded photograph look and realistic overtones, Nostalgia has no lovelorn schoolgirls or mecha-piloting, laser-firing, giant-eyed anime heroines in skimpy attire. However, Takeru was convinced that the time was right for a slow-paced ocean liner mystery set in the decade before World War I. Nostalgia appeared on the Sharp X68000 home computer, and then the PC 9801, the FM Towns Marty console, and the Sega CD. The Sega CD port is especially curious. An early title for Sega CD peripheral, it relied on relatively primitive MIDI music that didn't take advantage of the CD format. Oddly enough, the game itself came with an audio CD of a much better version of the game's soundtrack, almost as if Takeru was taunting players with a glimpse of how nice that game might have sounded. Better music would not have helped, though. Nostalgia 1907 did poorly across its various releases. We'll spare you the obvious puns. In a 2009 interview, Yatsui mentioned that he departed the company because he felt partially responsible for the game's lackluster sales, and the effect on Takeru's fortunes. Even so, Nostalgia 1907 has its fans. It's a unique creation among video games, and it earned a cult following. Hideo Kojima even looked to its bomb-defusing scene for inspiration in Police Nuts. Nostalgia 1907's closest relative might be another misunderstood adventure. Jordan Mechner's 1997 adventure game, The Last Express.
Ah, Herr Whitney. You are different than I had imagined.
Sorry to keep you waiting. I ran across an old friend.
One does have the most unexpected encounters on trains. Shall we get
Set aboard a passenger train in 1914, it also aims for a classic period drama and a dialogue-driven mystery. And it didn't sell very well, either. Despite Nostalgia 1907's rough reception, Takeru used it to start up a series called Sur de Mystery. Presence, released on the FM Towns and the PC-98 in 1992, continued the idea with a mystery set aboard a passenger airliner. Takeru and Surdawave's other PC-98 releases made less of a splash, including the billiards game Hard Shot and the strategy game Golem Master, the latter of which was the work of an outside developer named Green System. Takeru's last release tried for new territory. Dino Senshi Rejection for the FM Towns attempts a primitive first-person shooter with RPG-like interaction in a future Tokyo laid waste by a meteor and overrun by mutants. A soldier named Keiko makes her way through the labyrinths beneath the city, meeting up with monsters as well as fellow survivors. Rejection's extensive voice acting and post-apocalyptic anime styling are impressive.
みんなも喜んでるよ。でも
どうしたんですか、団長。
港といえばゾンビの多発地帯だ。
Though the game wasn't ported beyond the FM Towns computer, and it wasn't enough to save Takeru. By 1994, Takeru had closed down, and they'd taken a few games with them. One was Poppin' Land, Akira Kitamura's sequel to Kokorone. Planned for the Sega CD, it promised a similar toy-like fantasy theme with extensive character customization. The game has never surfaced in any form, but flyers and at least one music track were released. Another casualty of Takeru's closure? A PC Engine spaceship strategy RPG called Imperial Force. Apparently in development at a company called Systemsoft, it remains even more enigmatic than Poppin' Land. It's a little unfair to cite Nostalgia 1907 as the sole reason for Takeru's downfall. The company's other titles didn't have much impact at the time, and only Little Samson was released outside of Japan. Unconfirmed reports even describe legal issues surrounding the Takeru and Surtawave name. A glance at Takeru's library also reveals something unusual. 0 games based on popular licenses. Developers of the 1990s usually paid the bills by making games out of popular movies, manga, fast food icons, or even flash-in-the-pan celebrities. Takeru didn't go that route, and their emphasis on original titles was both admirable and maybe a little foolish. If there's an upside to Takeru's disbanding, all of the talent landed elsewhere. Shinichi Yoshimoto moved on to Dimps Corporation, working on titles like Inuyasha, A Feudal Fairy Tale, and Draglade. Koichi Yatsui, Akira Kitamura, and Utada Kiyoshi all found refuge at Mitchell Corporation. Yatsui directed the realistic martial arts game The Karate Tournament, and a risque puzzle game called Lady Killer, before returning to his action game roots with 1996's Osman. Also known as Cannon Dancer, it borrows Strider's idea of a globe-trotting hero and coats it with even more bizarre characters and imagery. Yatsui went into freelance work after leaving Mitchell, and his name appears in everything from the brawler shooter Drakengard 2 to the adventure game Zero Time Dilemma. He also went back to the themes of Strider and Cannon Dancer with the 2011 game Moondiver. Utada Kiyoshi's sprite art can be seen in many Mitchell games of the 1990s, including Osman, The Karate Tournament, Double Wings, and Charlie Ninja. Akira Kitamura also came on board at Mitchell, though only for the side-scrolling action game Funky Jet. A straightforward brawler, it still shows hints of Mega Man in its main characters and a final boss pulled from Dr. Wily's laboratory. After that, Kitamura effectively retired from the video game industry, and in the decades since, He's only given occasional interviews about the creation of Mega Man, and seldom mentions his work at Takeru. Takeru's quick rise and fall may have been a cautionary tale for developers about straying too far from the game industry conventions. But their catalog remains interesting, with 2 action games in the tradition of Capcom's best, and a unique period piece adventure game. Takeru's efforts ensured that their work would be remembered by at least a cult following. And in an industry where many major talents and promising games are ignored and fade away, sometimes a cult following is the best that you can hope for. Hey everybody, this is Joel with Unsung Game Creators. Thank you so much for watching our conclusion of the Takeru Story. If you haven't liked and subscribed already, please do so. We're a really small channel, so every little bit helps. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time.